The single mother sat in court, watching her wealthy ex take everything from her. Then she heard it, the rumble of 85 motorcycle engines outside. Bikers stormed the courtroom and sat behind her. She didn't recognize a single face. What she didn't know, years ago, when she was just a waitress with nothing, she'd saved every one of them. Maria's hands trembled as she clutched the worn leather strap of her purse. The fluorescent lights of Courtroom 4B felt too bright, too exposing. She could feel every eye in the room judging her. Her faded jeans, her drugstore blouse, the way her hair refused to stay in place no matter how many pins she used. Across the aisle, Evan sat in his $1,000 suit, perfectly pressed, perfectly confident. His lawyer, Richard Castellano, looked like he'd stepped out of a legal drama. Silver hair, designer glasses, and a smile that made Maria's stomach turn. "Your Honor," Castellano's voice dripped with practiced sympathy. "We're not here to attack Ms. Rodriguez. We simply want what's best for 7-year-old Danny." He paused, letting the silence work for him. "But the facts speak for themselves. Ms. Rodriguez works 60-hour weeks at a diner. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood with a documented crime rate 30% above the county average. She has no college education, no family support system, and," he glanced at his notes with theatrical concern, "she recently bounced a check for her son's school lunch program." Maria felt her cheeks burn. That check had bounced because Evan had been 3 months late on child support. But her court-appointed lawyer, fresh out of law school and overwhelmed with cases, hadn't even mentioned that detail. Judge Patricia Morrison peered over her glasses, her expression unreadable. She was in her early 60s, with the kind of face that had probably never smiled at a joke it didn't make. "Ms. Rodriguez, is this accurate?" Maria stood, her legs feeling like water. "Your Honor, I work hard for my son. That apartment might be small, but it's clean, and—" "Yes or no, Ms. Rodriguez?" the judge interrupted. "Did you bounce a check?" "Yes, but—" "Thank you. Sit down." Maria's lawyer, Tommy Chun, squeezed her arm gently. He whispered, "I'll fix this on redirect," but his voice lacked conviction. Evan's lawyer wasn't finished. He called a social worker who had visited Maria's apartment once, and somehow painted it as a scene from a poverty documentary. He called Evan's new fiancée, a pediatric dentist named Ashley, who testified about the stable, 2-parent household they could provide. She wore pearls and spoke in soft, caring tones that made Maria want to scream. Nobody mentioned that Maria had raised Danny alone for 5 years after Evan walked out. Nobody mentioned the birthday parties she'd thrown on a shoestring budget or the nights she'd stayed up helping with homework after 12-hour shifts. Nobody mentioned that Danny still slept with the stuffed bear she'd sewn by hand because they couldn't afford the toy store. When Evan took the stand, he played his part perfectly. "I've made mistakes, Your Honor. I'll be the first to admit that. I wasn't ready to be a father back then." He paused, his voice catching just slightly, a trick he'd perfected during their marriage whenever he got caught in a lie. "But I've changed. I have a stable career now, a home with a yard, and Ashley brings so much love to our family. Danny deserves better than what Maria can give him. He deserves opportunities." The words hit Maria like physical blows. Better than what Maria can give him, as if love could be measured in square footage and bank accounts. "Your Honor," Castellano continued, standing again, "Mr. Thompson is prepared to offer full educational support, including private schooling, sports programs, and college savings. He can provide what every child deserves, security and stability." Judge Morrison called a 20-minute recess. "We'll reconvene to hear from Ms. Rodriguez's witnesses." But Maria had no witnesses. Who could she call? Her co-workers at the diner who'd cover her shifts when Danny was sick? Her elderly neighbor who sometimes watched him for free? None of them could compete with Evan's parade of impressive character references. Maria stumbled out of the courtroom, her vision blurring with tears. She found a wooden bench in the hallway outside and collapsed onto it, burying her face in her hands. 7 years. 7 years of being both mother and father, of choosing between paying the electric bill and buying Danny new shoes, of making every sacrifice imaginable. And now some judge who'd never missed a meal in her life was going to take her son away. "Ma'am, you okay?" Maria looked up through her tears. A maintenance worker stood nearby, holding a mop. He was in his 30s, African American, with kind eyes and a name tag that read Jerome. I'm sorry, Maria wiped her face. I'm fine. Jerome set his mop aside and sat down, keeping a respectful distance. That custody hearing in there? Room 4B. Maria nodded, not trusting her voice. Thought I recognized you. Jerome's voice was soft. You probably don't remember me. Been about 15 years. I was a kid, 17, maybe 18. Sleeping behind the old Riverside Diner on Marshall Street. Maria's breath caught. She looked at him more carefully. Something about his eyes. It was winter, Jerome continued. Coldest February on record. You found me one night after your shift, brought me inside, gave me food, let me sleep in the storage room. Did that for 3 months until I got into a youth program, he smiled. You saved my life that winter, Ms. Rodriguez. Literally. Jerome, Maria whispered, the memory flooding back. Little J, you were so thin. Not so little anymore. He glanced toward the courtroom. And I don't forget people who showed me kindness when the world turned its back. He pulled out his phone. That man in there, in the fancy suit. He doesn't know who you really are. But I do. And I know some other folks who do too. Jerome, I appreciate it, but there's nothing. Just trust me, he was already dialing. The phone rang once before someone picked up. Hawk. Yeah, it's Jerome. Remember that woman I told you about? The one from the Riverside Diner who took me in back in '09. A pause. She's in trouble. Real trouble. Courtroom 4B, County Courthouse. She needs us. Another pause. Jerome's expression shifted, determined, almost fierce. How fast can you get here? He listened, then looked at Maria. His eyes held something she hadn't seen all day. Hope. Good, Jerome said into the phone. Bring everyone. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Maria sat in the hallway, Jerome beside her, neither speaking. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears. Inside that courtroom, her entire world was being decided by people who didn't know her, didn't see her, didn't care. They're coming, Jerome said quietly, checking his phone. 5 minutes out. Who's coming? Maria's voice was barely a whisper. Before Jerome could answer, the bailiff stepped into the hallway. Ms. Rodriguez? We're resuming. Maria stood on shaking legs. Jerome touched her shoulder. Go on in. And whatever happens next, just trust it. She walked back into courtroom 4B feeling like she was walking to her execution. Evan sat there smirking, his lawyer shuffling papers with casual confidence. Judge Morrison settled into her chair with a heavy sigh. Ms. Rodriguez, the judge began. Do you have any witnesses to present on your behalf? Tommychin stood. Your Honor, we have. That's when the sound started. Low at first, a distant rumble, like thunder rolling in from far away. But it grew louder, deeper. The windows rattled slightly. Several people in the courtroom turned toward the sound, confused. Evan's lawyer frowned. What is that? The rumble became a roar. Not one engine, but dozens. The unmistakable sound of motorcycles, big ones, approaching fast. Judge Morrison's eyes narrowed. Bailiff, what's going on out there? The bailiff moved to the window, and his eyes went wide. Your Honor, you need to see this. Through the tall courthouse windows, they appeared. One by one, then in groups, motorcycles rolled into the parking lot. Chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. Black leather. American flags. The riders moved with precision, parking in perfect rows like a military formation. Maria's jaw dropped. There had to be at least 80 of them. The engines cut off one by one, leaving an eerie silence. Then the courtroom doors opened. They walked in quietly, respectfully. Big men and women in leather vests, boots echoing on the tile floor. They filed into the gallery, filling every available seat. Some had gray beards, others were younger. All of them had the same symbol on their vests, an iron hawk with spread wings. The courtroom fell absolutely silent. Even Evan looked nervous. What is the meaning of this? Judge Morrison's voice cracked like a whip. Who are you people? A man stood from the front row. He was in his 50s, built like a bear, with a salt and pepper beard and eyes that had seen too much. His vest marked him as president. Your Honor, my name is Marcus Hawk Johnson. We're the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club. His voice was deep, calm, controlled. We're here as character witnesses for Maria Rodriguez. Castellano shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. This is clear intimidation. I demand these people be removed immediately. Sit down, Mr. Castellano, the judge said, though her eyes never left Hawk. Mr. Johnson, this is highly irregular. You can't just storm into a custody hearing with. She glanced at the packed gallery. How many people is this? 85, Your Honor. 85 people, she repeated, disbelief in her voice. Your Honor, Hawk continued, we're not here to intimidate anyone. We're here because 15 years ago, this woman saved my life. And I'm not the only one. Maria sat frozen, her mind racing. She didn't remember anyone named Hawk. She'd helped so many people over the years, folks down on their luck, homeless veterans, teenagers with nowhere to go. She'd given them food from the diner, a warm place to sleep, sometimes just a kind word. It had never been about recognition. It had just been the right thing to do. I was a veteran, Hawk said, his voice steady. Iraq, 2 tours. Came home with PTSD and a drinking problem. Lost my job, my family, everything. I was living under a bridge when Maria found me. She didn't see a drunk or a failure. She saw a human being. She gave me food, helped me find a counselor, even paid for my first month in a halfway house. He gestured to the others. Every person in this room has a story like mine. Maria Rodriguez helped us when no one else would. She asked for nothing in return. She never even told us her last name. We had to track her down through Jerome. A woman stood. She was in her 40s, her leather vest decorated with patches. I was a teenage runaway. Maria found me stealing food from her diner. Instead of calling the cops, she fed me. Let me work in the kitchen for cash. Helped me get my GED. Tears streamed down her face. I have 2 kids now, Your Honor. I'm a nurse. I wouldn't be alive without her. Another stood. Then another. One by one, they shared their stories. A former addict. A homeless vet. A kid who'd aged out of foster care. A single father who'd lost everything. Each one, Maria had touched. Each one, she'd saved in some small way. Maria couldn't breathe. She remembered faces, moments, a cold night, a shared meal, a few dollars slipped into a pocket. She'd never imagined it mattered this much. Evan's face had gone pale. Castellano was furiously whispering to him. Your Honor, the lawyer practically shouted. This is a circus. These people are clearly. These people, Hawk interrupted, his voice harder now, are teachers, nurses, mechanics, small business owners, and veterans. We pay our taxes. We volunteer in our communities. We're not criminals. We're Americans who know loyalty when we see it. Judge Morrison sat back, her expression unreadable. The courtroom crackled with tension. Your Honor, Castellano tried again. I move to have this entire proceeding declared a mistrial. This is witness tampering, intimidation. Your Honor, Tommy Chin finally found his voice. These are legitimate character witnesses. They have every right to testify. The judge rubbed her temples. This is unprecedented. She looked at Maria, really looked at her for the first time. The woman in the faded clothes who'd said nothing all day. Then she looked at the 85 people who dropped everything to ride across the city for her. We're going to take a recess, Judge Morrison said slowly. A long one. I need time to consider how to proceed. This hearing will reconvene 1 week from today. Same time. She pointed her gavel at Hawk. Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your loyalty to Ms. Rodriguez. But if you ever bring a motorcycle convoy to my courthouse again without prior notice, we're going to have problems. Understood, Your Honor. The gavel fell. Maria sat there, stunned, as 85 bikers filed out as quietly as they'd entered. Jerome appeared beside her, grinning. Told you to trust me. The next morning, Maria woke up still not believing what had happened. She pulled on her diner uniform, the same one she'd worn for 3 years, and stared at herself in the bathroom mirror. Somewhere in this city, 85 people who owed her nothing were planning something. The thought terrified and amazed her in equal measure. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We got this. Focus on your boy, Hawk. At the diner, her co-workers bombarded her with questions. Someone had posted a video of the bikers entering the courthouse. It had 300,000 views. Girl, you know bikers? Rosa, the head waitress, grabbed her arm. Real bikers. It's complicated, Maria said, tying her apron. Complicated? Maria, You had a whole motorcycle gang show up for you. They're not a gang. Maria paused. What were they? They're people I helped. A long time ago. She poured coffee, took orders, wiped down tables. Normal life. But her mind kept drifting to that courtroom, to Hawk's steady voice, to the way the judge had looked at her differently after the bikers spoke. 10 miles away, in a garage that doubled as the Iron Hawks clubhouse, Hawk spread a map across a worn pool table. 20 members crowded around. Listen up, Hawk said. We got 7 days to build a case. Maria's lawyer is good-hearted but inexperienced. He's fighting with a pocket knife against a bazooka. We need to change those odds. A woman named Jules, the former runaway who is now a nurse, spoke up. What are we looking for exactly? Dirt on Evan Thompson. Hawk pulled out a folder with a printed photo of Evan. Rich guys like him always have skeletons. Tax issues, shady business deals, maybe something worse. We find it. We give it to Maria's lawyer, and we make sure that judge sees who Evan really is. I've got a cousin who works at the IRS, said Marcus, a mechanic with tattoos covering both arms. Owes me a favor from way back. I can ask him to check if Thompson's taxes are clean. Do it, Hawk said. But careful. We're not breaking laws here. We work smart. Razor, the club's sergeant-at-arms, a Vietnam vet with a scarred face, leaned forward. I've got trucker buddies who run routes to every state. If Thompson's moving money or has business out of state, they might have seen something. Good. Make calls, Hawk pointed to another member. Tiny, you still got that friend who works at the county clerk's office. Tiny, ironically named, as he was 6'5" and 280 pounds, nodded. Yes, Sarah. She helped me file my business license last year. Property records. I want to know every piece of real estate Thompson owns. Houses, land, investment properties. Everything. The assignments kept coming. Each member had connections, a web of relationships built over years of helping each other, of being part of something bigger than themselves. A waitress at an upscale restaurant where Evan ate lunch. A paralegal at a law firm downtown. A bank teller who'd once been homeless until the Hawks helped him get clean. Remember, Hawks said, we're not criminals. We're citizens gathering public information. Nothing illegal. We do this right. By the second day, information started flowing in. Marcus's IRS cousin couldn't give specifics, but dropped a hint. Tell your friend to look into overseas accounts. Cayman Islands. That's all I can say. Razor's truckers reported seeing Evan at a private airfield in Nevada 6 months ago, loading boxes onto a small plane. Looked hinky, one trucker said. Like he didn't want to be seen. Tiny's friend Sarah pulled property records. Evan owned 4 properties, including a lakeside cabin listed under an LLC that traced back to him. But the interesting part was a commercial property in Delaware that had been cited for safety violations twice. Jules made calls to her network of nurses. One worked at a hospital where Evan's company had donated equipment. The donation was suspicious, the nurse whispered. It was right before a big tax audit. My administrator said it looked like a write-off scheme. Back at the diner, Maria's shift ended at 4. She picked up Danny from after-school care, hugging him so tight he squirmed. Mom, you're crushing me. Sorry, baby, she kissed his head. Just missed you today. Mrs. Chun said you were on TV. Is that true? Maria's heart clenched. Sort of. It's nothing to worry about. Are you still fighting with Dad? We're working things out with the judge, honey. Everything's going to be okay. But she didn't know if that was true. Evan had money, power, and lawyers who knew every trick. What did she have? A group of bikers who barely knew her, and her phone rang. Hawk. Maria, you got a minute to talk? Sure. Danny, go wash up for dinner. She stepped into her tiny bedroom. What's going on? Your ex-husband isn't what he pretends to be. Hawk's voice was grim. My people found some things. Offshore accounts. Suspicious property deals. A pattern of using fake donations for tax breaks. There's more, but we're still digging. Maria sat on her bed, dizzy. How did you? We know people. Good people who owe us favors. People who care about the truth. He paused. Maria, this guy's been playing games with the system for years. He's not some upstanding citizen. He's a con artist in an expensive suit. Can you prove it? Working on it. We've got leads on at least 3 deals that look like fraud. Tax evasion for sure. Maybe bribery. We're hearing he might have paid off a building inspector last year. It's going to take a few more days to get solid evidence, but it's there. Maria's hands shook. Hawk, why are you doing this? All of this. Silence on the other end. Then, 15 years ago, I was ready to eat a bullet. I had the gun loaded, sitting under that bridge, thinking nobody would miss me. Then you showed up with a sandwich and a thermos of soup. You sat with me for an hour. You talked to me like I was human, his voice roughened. You gave me a reason to see tomorrow. Now I'm returning the favor. Tears burned Maria's eyes. I just gave you food. You gave me hope. That's bigger than food, he cleared his throat. Get some rest. We've got 5 more days. When you walk back into that courtroom, Evan Thompson's going to wish he'd never messed with you. After he hung up, Maria sat in the dim light of her bedroom. In the living room, Danny was singing something off-key while washing his hands. Her small, beautiful life, the life Evan wanted to take away. But now she had an army built from kindness she'd forgotten, from moments that had seemed so small. Maybe, just maybe, kindness was the most powerful weapon of all. Maria woke up on day 4 to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The first text was from Rosa at the diner. OMG Maria, turn on the news. With trembling fingers, she opened her news app. Her face stared back at her from the screen. The mother with 85 guardians. Viral custody battle captivates nation. Her heart stopped. Below the headline was the video, the one someone had filmed in the courtroom. But now it had been viewed 12 million times. 12 million. The video showed the bikers filing in, respectful and silent. It caught Hawk's testimony, his voice steady and dignified. It showed her face, tear-streaked, shocked, overwhelmed. The comments section exploded with thousands of messages. This is what real loyalty looks like. That woman must be a saint if 85 people showed up for her. I'm crying at my desk right now. Faith in humanity restored. Maria scrolled, her coffee getting cold. Danny was still asleep. She should wake him for school, but she couldn't move. This was too big, too public, too everything. Then she saw the other articles. The morning talk shows had picked it up. Twitter was flooded with hashtags. Hashtag 85 Guardians. Hashtag Mother Maria. Hashtag Biker Justice. Someone had created a tribute video set to emotional music, intercutting the courtroom footage with photos the bikers had shared. Maria at the old diner, younger, smiling, handing food to people through the back door. By noon, the story had hit national news. Good Morning America ran a segment. The host, a perfectly coiffed woman named Diane, spoke with genuine emotion. In a world that often feels cold and divided, this story reminds us that kindness matters, that helping others, even in small ways, can change lives. Maria had to call in sick to work. She couldn't face the cameras she knew would be waiting outside the diner. Rosa understood. Girl, you're famous. Take care of yourself. But fame was a double-edged sword. By early afternoon, Evan's team had launched their counterattack. A press release appeared on every major news site. Custody battle hijacked. Criminal bikers intimidate court proceedings. The statement, from Evan's PR firm, painted a different picture. It called the Iron Hawks a known motorcycle gang with alleged ties to illegal activities. It suggested Maria had orchestrated the stunt to manipulate public opinion. It questioned whether someone associated with criminal elements should have custody of a child. The comments section shifted. Wait, are these bikers actually criminals? This feels staged now. Rich guy probably just wants his kid, and she's playing games. Maria read the words and felt sick. They were twisting everything, making her look manipulative, making the people who'd helped her look dangerous. She called Hawk, panicking. They're calling you criminals. They're making it sound like I planned this. What do? We tell the truth, Hawk said calmly. But louder. Within 2 hours, the Iron Hawks official Facebook page, which Maria hadn't even known existed, posted a response. The post was simple but powerful. It showed photos from their last 5 years. The Hawks serving Thanksgiving dinner at a homeless shelter. A charity motorcycle ride that raised $50,000 for children's cancer research. Veterans visiting schools to talk about service. Community cleanup days where they'd remove trash from parks. The caption read, "We're not a gang. We're a family. We're teachers, nurses, veterans, and parents. We pay taxes. We serve our communities. And yes, we showed up for Maria Rodriguez because she showed up for us when no one else did." That's not intimidation. That's loyalty. Below that, they posted video testimonials. Jules, the nurse, speaking in her hospital scrubs. I wouldn't be alive today without Maria Rodriguez. She saved me when I was 17 and homeless. Now I save lives because she gave me a chance at mine. Marcus, the mechanic, standing in his garage. Maria helped me get clean 12 years ago. I now run my own business and employ 6 people. She asks for nothing but gives everything. A dozen more videos followed. Real people, real stories, real gratitude. The tide began to turn again. Local news stations picked up the testimonials. A reporter tracked down the homeless shelter where the Hawks volunteered. The director, an elderly woman named Sister Catherine, spoke with fierce loyalty. The Iron Hawks have been volunteering here for 8 years. They're some of the kindest, most dependable people I know. Calling them criminals is a disgrace. By evening, Evan's PR strategy had backfired. The internet loves an underdog, and Maria had become America's underdog. Memes spread. Artwork appeared, stylized drawings of Maria with 85 guardian angels on motorcycles. Musicians wrote songs. A hashtag emerged, #loyalty over money. A celebrity chef with 5 million followers tweeted, I grew up poor with a single mom who worked 3 jobs. This story hits home. Team Maria all the way. A popular podcaster dedicated an entire episode to examining how the legal system favors wealth over character. Evan's Facebook page got flooded with angry comments. His company's website crashed from the traffic. Someone created a petition demanding the judge rule in Maria's favor. It got 200,000 signatures in 6 hours. Maria sat on her couch that night, Danny asleep in her lap, watching it all unfold on her phone. It felt surreal. Yesterday, she was nobody. Today, the entire country was arguing about her life. Her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. Ms. Rodriguez? This is Brenda Park from CNN. We'd love to have you on our show tomorrow to tell your side of. Maria hung up. Then she turned off her phone. The attention was overwhelming. Everyone wanted a piece of her story, her pain, her struggle. They wanted her to perform her trauma for their entertainment. But in all the noise, one thing had become crystal clear. She wasn't alone anymore. Somewhere out there, millions of strangers were rooting for her. 85 bikers were fighting for her. And Evan's perfect, polished image was cracking like cheap paint in the sun. Maria held Danny closer, breathing in the smell of his shampoo. 3 more days until the hearing. 3 more days to gather strength. The world was watching now, and that changed everything. Day 5 started with a phone call that shattered Maria's fragile hope. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Tommy Chun. Her lawyer's voice sounded strained. We need to talk. Maria's stomach dropped. She was getting Danny ready for school, and she had to work in an hour. What's wrong? I got a call from Evan's legal team. They're planning to use the media coverage against you. They're going to argue that you're exploiting the situation, that you're using the bikers to create a public spectacle and prejudice the judge. He paused. Maria, I'm worried they might have a point. Judge Morrison doesn't like theatrics. The words hit like a punch. But I didn't ask for any of this. I know, but perception matters in court. The viral videos, the national news coverage. Evan's lawyers are calling it a manipulation campaign. They're going to paint you as someone who orchestrates chaos instead of providing stability. After Tommy hung up, Maria sat at her kitchen table, unable to move. Danny chattered about a field trip coming up, but his words sounded distant, underwater. What if she'd made everything worse? What if the judge saw the bikers and decided Maria was exactly what Evan claimed? Unstable, unpredictable, surrounded by the wrong element. At the diner, the doubts grew heavier. A customer, a businessman in a suit, gave her a strange look. Hey, aren't you that woman from the news? The one with the biker gang. They're not a gang, Maria said quietly. Right, his tone suggested he didn't believe her. Must be nice, having people fight your battles for you. The words stung more than they should have. Was that what people thought? That she was hiding behind the bikers instead of standing on her own? Rosa noticed Maria's mood. You okay, honey? I don't know anymore. Maria wiped down a table that didn't need wiping. What if the bikers showing up makes the judge think I'm a bad mother? What if all this attention just proves Evan's point, that I can't provide a stable life for Danny? That's crazy talk. Is it? Maria's voice cracked. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. I work 60-hour weeks. And now I'm associated with a motorcycle club. What judge is going to choose that over Evan's big house and perfect fiancé? She spent her shift in a fog of anxiety. Every customer felt like a judgment. Every whispered conversation felt like it was about her. At 2 o'clock, the diner door opened. Hawk walked in, his leather vest drawing immediate attention. A few customers tensed. Others pulled out their phones. Hawk ignored them all. He walked straight to the counter and sat down. Coffee, black. Maria poured with shaking hands. You shouldn't be here. People are watching. Let them watch. His voice was steady, calm. Maria, I need to talk to you. When's your break? 10 minutes. Good. I'll wait. When her break came, they sat in a booth in the back corner. Hawk pulled out a thick manila folder and set it on the table. You're having doubts, he said. It wasn't a question. Maria looked down at her hands. My lawyer says Evan's team is going to use you against me. That showing up at the courthouse might have hurt my case instead of helping it. And you believe that? I don't know what to believe anymore. Her voice was barely a whisper. Maybe I'm making everything worse. Maybe Danny would be better off with Evan. He has money, stability, a nice house. Stop. Hawk's voice was firm but not harsh. Listen to me carefully. Loyalty isn't something to be ashamed of. It's not a weakness. It's the strongest thing a person can have. Maria looked up. His eyes were intense, honest. You're doubting yourself because rich people like Evan have convinced the world that money equals worth. That a big house matters more than a big heart. That expensive lawyers trump actual character. He leaned forward. But that's garbage, Maria. Complete garbage. The judge might not see it that way. Then we make sure she does. He pushed the folder toward her. This is everything we found on Evan Thompson. And trust me, it's ugly. Maria opened the folder. Her eyes widened. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. Tax documents with suspicious deductions. Emails discussing bribes to a building inspector. Photos of Evan at that Nevada airfield. Loading boxes that according to flight records were headed to the Cayman Islands. A pattern of fraud spanning years. How did you get all this? Legally. Public records, whistleblowers, people who got tired of watching him cheat the system. Hawk tapped the folder. This man isn't a good father. He's a criminal in an expensive suit. He doesn't want Danny because he loves him. He wants Danny because you filed for child support and he's trying to avoid paying it. Maria's hands trembled as she flipped through pages of evidence. I know you're scared, Hawk continued. But you can't let fear make you small. 85 people showed up for you because you were brave enough to help them when they were at their lowest. You didn't worry about what people would think. You just did what was right. That was different. No, it wasn't. You've always been brave, Maria. You just forgot. He stood up. In 3 days, you walk back into that courtroom. And you walk in with your head high. Because you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for Danny. And you're showing him that good people don't back down when things get hard. Maria looked at the evidence in front of her. Real proof. Solid documentation. Everything Tommy would need to expose Evan's lies. Loyalty is power, Hawk said. Remember that. You helped us when we had nothing. Now we're helping you. That's not manipulation. That's family. He left money on the counter for his coffee and walked out. The other customers watched him go, whispering, judging. Maria didn't care anymore. She closed the folder and held it tight. For the first time in days, she felt something other than fear. She felt angry. Evan had tried to paint her as unfit while he was breaking laws and cheating the system. He'd tried to make her feel small while he was the one hiding dirty secrets. No more. She texted Tommy, I have new evidence. Major evidence. Can you meet tomorrow morning? His response came fast. Yes. What kind of evidence? The kind that changes everything. Maria finished her shift with a different energy. The doubts were still there. They probably always would be. But underneath the fear was something stronger. Her son needed her. And she'd be damned if she'd let Evan Thompson take him away. Day 6 started at 6:47 a.m. with a knock on Maria's apartment door. She opened it to find a woman in a gray pantsuit holding a clipboard. The woman's smile was professional but cold. Ms. Rodriguez? I'm Linda Patterson from Child Protective Services. I need to conduct an emergency home evaluation. Maria's blood went cold. What? Why? We received a report of potential neglect. It's standard procedure. May I come in? Maria's mind raced. Danny was still asleep in the bedroom. The apartment was clean. She'd made sure of that, but panic clawed at her throat. "Ah, yes. Come in." Linda Patterson walked through the small apartment with clinical precision. She checked the refrigerator, examined the smoke detectors, looked in closets. She took photos, made notes. Her face revealed nothing. "Ms. Rodriguez, do you often leave your son alone?" "What? No. Never. The report says you left him unsupervised last Tuesday evening." "That's a lie. I was home all evening. We made dinner together, mac and cheese. I helped him with his homework." Linda wrote something down. "And you work how many hours per week?" "About 60, but he's never alone. He has after-school care, and my neighbor checks on him." Mrs. Chun is 73 years old. Is she capable of supervising an active 7-year-old? The questions kept coming, each one designed to make Maria look careless, incompetent, unfit. After 40 minutes, Linda Patterson left with a curt, "We'll be in touch." Maria's hands shook as she closed the door. Someone had reported her. But who? The answer came 3 hours later. At the Hawks clubhouse, a woman named Sandra arrived on her motorcycle. She worked in the county CPS office, not as a social worker, but in the records department. 10 years ago, the Hawks had helped her escape an abusive husband. She owed them her life. "Hawk, you need to see this." Sandra pulled out her phone, showing him a digital copy of the report filed against Maria. "This came through yesterday. Someone named Linda Patterson filed it." Hawk scanned the document. His jaw tightened. "This is garbage. Every claim here is either exaggerated or completely false." "I know. And there's something else." Sandra swiped to another screen. "Patterson doesn't usually handle cases in that district. She was specially assigned to this one. And look at the timestamp. The report was filed at 4:32 p.m. yesterday. But Patterson didn't visit Maria until this morning. So the report was written before she even saw the apartment." "Exactly. Someone paid her to file a bogus report." Hawk's eyes narrowed. "Can you prove it?" "Not yet. But I might know someone who can help." By noon, the Hawks had mobilized. Jules called in a favor from a friend who worked at a bank. Razor contacted a former Army buddy who now did private security and had access to surveillance systems throughout the city. Tiny reached out to a bartender at an upscale restaurant where Evan often ate lunch. The pieces started falling into place. At 2:15 p.m., the bartender texted Tiny, "Your guy was here yesterday. Sat in the back booth with a woman matching your description. Paid cash. Left a big tip, $300 on a $40 lunch. Seemed hinky." The bank friend found something better, a cash withdrawal from Evan's account. $5,000. Yesterday morning. But the real gold mine came from Razor's surveillance contact. "I pulled footage from the parking garage near the courthouse," the contact said over the phone. "You were right. Evan Thompson met with someone yesterday at 3:45 p.m. A woman. They talked for about 10 minutes in his car, then she left with an envelope." "Can you identify the woman?" "Already did. Linda Patterson. She's a social worker with CPS." "Can you send me the footage?" "Already in your email. But you didn't get this from me." Hawk opened the video on his laptop. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Evan's Mercedes. A woman approaching, getting in the passenger seat. 15 minutes of conversation. Then Evan handing her a manila envelope. Her slipping it into her purse and walking away. The timestamp, 3:47 p.m. 45 minutes before Patterson filed the report against Maria. "Got him," Hawk muttered. He called Tommy Chin immediately. "Maria's lawyer? This is Marcus Johnson. We met at the courthouse. I need you to meet me in 1 hour. And bring a USB drive." Tommy arrived at a coffee shop near his office, looking nervous. "Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your help, but I have to be careful about how I receive evidence. This is legal. Security camera footage from a public parking garage. Bank records obtained through legitimate channels. Testimony from a credible witness." Hawk handed him a folder and a USB drive. Evan Thompson bribed a CPS worker named Linda Patterson to file a false neglect report against Maria. This footage shows him handing her money. The timeline proves the report was written before she even visited Maria's apartment. Tommy's eyes widened as he reviewed the materials. This is huge. If I can verify this." "It's already verified. My contacts are solid. But you'll want to do your own due diligence." Hawk leaned forward. That man is trying to destroy Maria's life with lies. He's not just fighting dirty, he's committing crimes. Bribery. Filing false reports. He needs to be exposed. Tommy nodded slowly, his lawyer brain kicking into gear. I'll need to file an emergency motion. Alert the judge. This changes everything. How long? I can have it filed by end of business today. The judge will see it first thing tomorrow morning. Good. Hawk stood. One more thing. Patterson needs to be reported. What she did was illegal and unethical. There are real kids out there who need protection, and she's wasting resources on fake cases for money. I'll make sure the proper authorities are notified. After Tommy left, Hawk sat in the coffee shop for a long moment. Evan Thompson was getting desperate, which made him dangerous. But desperation also made people sloppy. And Evan had just made a critical mistake. He texted Maria, "Evan tried to sabotage you with a fake CPS report. We have proof. Your lawyer is handling it. You're safe." Her response came quickly. "How did you know? We know people, and we take care of our own." Across town, in his luxury downtown condo, Evan poured himself a scotch. He'd paid Patterson $5,000 to file that report. By tomorrow, the judge would see Maria as a negligent mother. The viral video momentum would die. He'd win custody, avoid those child support payments, and put this whole mess behind him. His phone rang. His lawyer, Castellano. "Evan, we have a problem. Maria's lawyer just filed an emergency motion. They have evidence you bribed a CPS worker." Evan's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. "What?" "Surveillance footage. Bank records. The whole thing. The judge is going to see this tomorrow morning." "Evan, if this is true." "It's not. I mean, how could they possibly? Did you or did you not meet with Linda Patterson yesterday?" Silence. "Evan, did you bribe a social worker?" More silence. "I need to know what I'm dealing with here." Evan hung up. His hands shook. How had they found out? He'd been so careful. Cash payment. Private meeting. No paper trail. Except there was always a trail. And somehow, Maria's people had found it. For the first time since this whole custody battle started, Evan Thompson felt genuine fear. Day 7. One day before the final hearing. At 9 a.m., Judge Patricia Morrison's chambers received 3 separate legal filings. Her clerk, overwhelmed, brought them in on a silver tray like they were about to explode. The first was from Tommy Chun, an emergency motion revealing Evan Thompson's bribery of a CPS worker, complete with surveillance footage, bank records, and witness testimony. The second was from Evan's legal team, a motion to dismiss the entire custody case on grounds of witness tampering and prejudicial interference, citing the organized intimidation campaign by the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club. The third was from someone Judge Morrison had never heard of, Daniel Doc Rivera, attorney at law, representing the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club. Judge Morrison read all 3 motions. Then she read them again. Then she reached for her bottle of aspirin. At 10:30 a.m., she called an emergency hearing in her chambers. Not the courtroom, her private office. She wanted answers, and she wanted them now. Evan arrived with Castellano and 2 other lawyers from his firm. Tommy Chin came alone, looking nervous but determined. And then Doc Rivera walked in. He was in his late 40s, Latino, with close-cropped hair and a well-tailored suit. But underneath the professional exterior, Judge Morrison could see the tattoo peeking out from his collar, an Iron Hawk. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd argued in far more dangerous venues than a courtroom. "Your Honor," Castellano started immediately, "we're here to discuss the travesty that has befallen these proceedings. The Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club has conducted a systematic campaign to—" "Mr. Castellano," the judge interrupted, "I'll decide what we're here to discuss. Sit down." "He's Saturday." Judge Morrison looked at Doc Rivera. "Mr. Rivera, your filing says you represent the Iron Hawks. What's your interest in this custody case?" "Your Honor, my clients have been falsely accused of witness tampering and intimidation. These accusations are not only untrue, but they're being used to distract from serious criminal activity by Mr. Thompson." Doc's voice was calm, measured. "I'm here to protect my client's reputation and to ensure the court has access to the full truth." "The full truth," Castellano scoffed. "Your clients staged an invasion of this courthouse with 85 bikers." "Character witnesses," Doc corrected. 85 citizens exercising their legal right to testify in a public hearing. Unless Mr. Castellano believes poor people aren't allowed in courtrooms. That's not what Your Honor, Doc continued. The Iron Hawks are a legitimate motorcycle club. We have members who are nurses, teachers, veterans, and small business owners. We've never been convicted of any criminal activity as an organization. Mr. Castellano is attempting to use classist stereotypes about motorcyclists to silence witnesses who might damage his client's case. Judge Morrison held up her hand. Enough. Mr. Rivera, I'll be honest. I've never seen anything like what happened in my courtroom last week. It was unprecedented and disruptive. I understand, Your Honor. But was it illegal? Did anyone threaten the court? Were proceedings interrupted? The judge had to admit, no. Then with respect, Your Honor, the only crime committed was being poor and wearing leather instead of suits. Castellano jumped in. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. They've clearly coordinated with Ms. Rodriguez too. Actually, Tommy Chin spoke up, surprising everyone. We have evidence that my client had no prior knowledge of the biker's appearance. Ms. Rodriguez hasn't seen most of these people in over a decade. She didn't ask them to come. She didn't coordinate anything. Convenient, Castellano muttered. What's not convenient? Doc said, pulling out a folder. Is this? He handed copies to everyone in the room. Surveillance footage showing Mr. Thompson meeting with CPS worker Linda Patterson yesterday. Time-stamped 45 minutes before she filed a false neglect report against Ms. Rodriguez. Bank records showing Mr. Thompson withdrew $5,000 that morning. Testimony from a restaurant worker who saw them meeting the day before. Evan's face went pale. Castellano flipped through the documents, his expression darkening with each page. Your Honor, Doc continued, my clients uncovered this evidence through entirely legal means. Public surveillance footage. Publicly available bank records obtained through a lawful inquiry. Voluntary witness statements. Everything in that folder is admissible. Judge Morrison studied the surveillance footage stills. The images were grainy but clear enough. Evan's car, Patterson getting in, an envelope changing hands. Mr. Thompson, the judge said quietly, did you meet with Linda Patterson yesterday? Your Honor, this is taken out of context. Yes or no? Evan looked at his lawyer. Castellano's face said everything. Don't answer that. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, Evan finally said. The room went silent. That was as good as a confession. Your Honor, Castellano tried to recover. Even if there were some impropriety on my client's part, which we neither confirm nor deny, it doesn't change the fact that a motorcycle gang has. Stop calling them a gang, Judge Morrison snapped. I've done my research, Mr. Castellano. The Iron Hawks have no criminal record as an organization. They run charity events. They volunteer at soup kitchens. Unless you have actual evidence of criminal activity, stop wasting my time with prejudicial language. Castellano's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Here's what's going to happen, Judge Morrison said. Tomorrow, we'll proceed with the final hearing. Both sides will present their cases, and I will consider all evidence, including Mr. Rivera's documentation of what appears to be bribery and fraud. She looked directly at Evan. Mr. Thompson, you should know that I've already contacted the district attorney's office. They'll be reviewing this matter separately. Evan looked like he might be sick. As for the motion to dismiss, the judge continued, denied. The presence of character witnesses, no matter how many, is not grounds for dismissal. She looked at Doc Rivera. However, Mr. Rivera, if your clients show up tomorrow, they will conduct themselves with absolute decorum. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Your Honor. Good. This meeting is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Doc Rivera found Hawk waiting by his motorcycle. How'd it go, Doc? Judge is pissed at Evan. The bribery evidence hit hard. She's referred it to the DA. Doc smiled slightly. Castellano tried to play the scary biker card. Didn't work. Tomorrow's the big day. Yeah. And Hawk. Evan's scared. Really scared. That makes him unpredictable. Tell everyone to be on their best behavior tomorrow. Suits, no vests. We give the judge 0 reasons to doubt us. Hawk nodded. Already planned on it. That evening, Maria got a call from Tommy Chun. His voice was excited, hopeful. Maria, the judge knows about the bribery. She's taking it seriously. And she shut down Evan's motion to dismiss. We're still in this fight. What does that mean for tomorrow? It means we have a real shot. A good shot, he paused. But Maria, you need to be ready. Evan's going to come out swinging. He's cornered now, and cornered animals are dangerous. After hanging up, Maria looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. Her son's future. Her future. But for the first time since this nightmare started, she didn't feel helpless. She had evidence. She had a lawyer who believed her. And she had 85 people ready to stand with her. One more day? Just one more day. The evening of day 7, something unexpected happened. A local news crew was filming outside the courthouse when a woman named Ellen Martinez walked up carrying a handmade sign. It read, "Maria Rodriguez helped my family. We stand with her." The reporter, sensing a story, approached her. "Ma'am, can you tell us why you're here?" Ellen was in her 60s, a grandmother with kind eyes and calloused hands. 5 years ago, my husband had a stroke. Lost his job, lost our insurance. We couldn't afford his medications. I was at the Riverside Diner one night, crying because I didn't know how we'd survive. She paused, emotional. Maria overheard. She gave me $500. Just handed it to me and said, "Pay me back when you can." We never could pay her back. But I can stand here for her now. By the next morning, the video had been shared 50,000 times. And people started showing up. At dawn on day 8, the day of the final hearing, the courthouse steps were filled with supporters. Some held signs. Others simply stood in solidarity. There were mothers who worked minimum wage jobs. Veterans. Small business owners. People who'd been homeless. People Maria had helped in ways big and small over the years. A man named Carlos, who owned a small auto repair shop, brought his entire crew of 6 mechanics. They wore matching t-shirts that said Team Maria with a small Iron Hawk logo. Maria's son came to my shop once with a flat tire on his bike, Carlos told a reporter. She didn't have money for a new tire, but I saw how hard she worked. The Hawks told me about her situation, and I realized she'd been the one who gave my sister food when she was struggling years ago. That's how Maria is. She helps people and doesn't ask for credit. A teacher named Mrs. Brennan arrived with a dozen other teachers from Danny's school. Danny Rodriguez is one of the brightest, most well-adjusted children I've taught in 20 years, she said firmly. That doesn't happen by accident. That's good parenting. The local bakery, Miller's Bakery, run by an elderly couple, brought coffee and donuts for everyone in the crowd. Free. The Iron Hawks rebuilt our storefront after a fire 3 years ago, Mr. Miller explained. Did the work for free. When we asked why, they said, "We take care of the community. If they stand with Maria, so do we." By 8 a.m., over 300 people crowded the courthouse lawn. The police had to set up barriers to manage the crowd. But it wasn't hostile. It was peaceful, determined, unified. Inside the Hawks clubhouse, 85 members prepared for the hearing. But they didn't wear leather vests today. They wore suits, some borrowed, some rented, all clean and respectful. Instead of their full vests, each wore a black armband with a small embroidered hawk. Hawk addressed them in the main room. Today, we show that judge who we really are. Not outlaws. Not thugs. Citizens. Americans who care about justice. We go in, we sit quietly, and we let the truth do the talking. Jules adjusted her blazer. She'd never worn anything this formal. "I'm nervous." "Good," Razor said, straightening his tie. A strange sight for a man usually in leather and denim. "Means you care. Just remember why we're doing this." A younger member named Spider spoke up. "Hawk, what if they still try to paint us as criminals?" "They will. But we've got document. We've got evidence. And we've got something Evan Thompson doesn't have. The truth." Hawk looked around the room. "Maria Rodriguez saved each of us. Some literally, some by giving us hope when we had none. Today, we return the favor. We save her." Across town, Maria stood in her small bathroom, staring at the only nice outfit she owned. A simple black dress she'd bought at a thrift store for a funeral 2 years ago. Her hands shook as she zipped it up. Danny knocked on the door. "Mom, are you okay?" She opened the door and knelt down to his level. "Baby, you're staying with Mrs. Chun today while Mommy goes to court. But I need you to know something." She took his small hands in hers. "No matter what happens, I love you more than anything in the world. You understand. Are they going to make me live with Dad? Maria's heart broke at the fear in his voice. I'm going to fight as hard as I can to keep us together. I have a lot of good people helping me. The bikers. Yeah, the bikers. And other people too. Lots of people. Danny hugged her tight. I want to stay with you, Mom. Dad's house is big, but it doesn't feel like home. I know, baby. I know. At 9 a.m., Maria arrived at the courthouse with Tommy Chun. The sight of 300 people stopped her in her tracks. Oh my God, she whispered. Signs filled the crowd. Justice for Maria, good mothers matter, character over cash. People cheered when they saw her. Strangers called out encouragement. You've got this, Maria. We're with you. Give him hell. Ellen Martinez, the grandmother from the news, pushed through the crowd and hugged Maria. You saved us. Now we save you. Maria couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face as dozens of people came forward. People she'd helped. People she barely remembered. People whose lives she'd touched without realizing it. Tommy gently guided her toward the courthouse entrance. We need to get inside. As they climbed the steps, Maria saw Evan arriving with his team of lawyers. He looked at the crowd, and his face went ashen. His perfect image, the wealthy philanthropist, the successful businessman, was crumbling. The crowd's energy wasn't angry, but it was powerful. These weren't paid protesters or social media influencers. These were real people with real stories. A news helicopter circled overhead. Every major outlet was covering this now. The custody battle had become a referendum on wealth versus character, power versus integrity. Inside the courthouse, the 85 Iron Hawks were already seated, filling the gallery in their suits and armbands. They sat in perfect silence, hands folded, eyes forward. The transformation was striking. Not scary bikers, but dignified citizens. Judge Morrison entered, surveying the packed courtroom. Every seat filled. Standing room only. The air crackled with anticipation. She sat down, arranged her papers, and looked out at the assembled crowd. Before we begin, I want to make something clear. This is a court of law, not a circus. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed immediately. Is that understood? Silence. Good. She looked at Tommy Chun. Counselor, are you prepared to present your case? Tommy stood, and for the first time in this entire battle, he looked confident. Yes, Your Honor. Very prepared. Evan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Castellano whispered something to him, but Evan didn't respond. He was staring at the crowd, at the bikers, at Maria, seeing, perhaps for the first time, that he was no longer in control. Judge Morrison picked up her gavel. Let's begin. The sound echoed through the courtroom like a starting gun. The final battle had begun. Castellano stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced precision. He was a performer, and this was his stage. Your Honor, we're here today because of one simple truth. Children deserve stability. They deserve opportunities. They deserve the best possible start in life. He turned toward Maria, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Ms. Rodriguez is a hardworking woman. No one disputes that. But hard work alone doesn't create a suitable environment for a child. He walked to his table, picking up a folder. Ms. Rodriguez works 60 hours per week at minimum wage. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment where her 7-year-old son sleeps on a couch. She has no savings, no college education, no career prospects. She recently bounced a check for school lunches. Her neighborhood has a crime rate 30% above county average. Tommy started to object, but Castellano continued smoothly. And now, she's associated with a motorcycle club, forgive me, a motorcycle organization, whose members felt the need to intimidate this court with their presence. He gestured toward the gallery. What kind of judgment does that show? What kind of stability can she offer? Maria felt each word like a slap. But then Castellano made his mistake. The truth is, Your Honor, Ms. Rodriguez survives through the charity of others. She can't support her son alone. She needs handouts, favors, and apparently the protection of 85 bikers to function. Is that the kind of dependence we want to model for a child? Hawk's jaw tightened. Jules whispered, that son of a... Easy, Hawk murmured. Castellano finished his opening with theatrical flair. Mr. Thompson offers a 2-parent household, financial security, excellent schools, and a future filled with opportunity. The choice here is clear. He sat down, looking satisfied. Judge Morrison turned to Tommy. Mr. Chun. Tommy stood, less polished but sincere. Your Honor, Mr. Castellano paints poverty as a moral failing. It's not. Maria Rodriguez works harder than most people in this room. She's been both mother and father to Danny for 7 years. She's never missed a parent-teacher conference. She's never missed a birthday. She's never failed to put her son first. He paused, gathering courage. But more importantly, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Thompson is not the upstanding citizen he claims to be. In fact, he's a criminal. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Castellano shot to his feet. Objection. Inflammatory and baseless. I have documentation, Your Honor, Tommy said firmly, and witnesses prepared to testify under oath. Judge Morrison leaned forward. This better be good, Mr. Chun. Your Honor, a deep voice called from the gallery. May I approach? Hawk stood, his suit fitting him surprisingly well. Without the leather vest, he looked like a businessman, solid, trustworthy, commanding. Judge Morrison hesitated. Mr. Johnson, you're not an attorney. No, Your Honor, but I'm a witness to Mr. Thompson's character, or lack thereof, and I have evidence I believe the court needs to see. The judge considered this. Counselor Chun, is this your witness? Yes, Your Honor. Fine. Mr. Johnson, approach the bench. And this better not be a stunt. Hawk walked forward calmly, carrying a thick folder. Doc Rivera joined him at the bench. Together, they presented documents to the judge while Castellano protested loudly. Judge Morrison silenced him with a look and began reading. Her expression changed. Skepticism became surprise. Surprise became concern. Concern became anger. Mr. Thompson, she said quietly, please stand. Evan rose, confused and nervous. Did you or did you not withdraw $5,000 in cash on October 9th, 2 days ago? Your Honor, my financial transactions are private. Did you meet with CPS worker Linda Patterson on October 9th at 3:47 p.m. in parking garage C? Evan's face went white. Castellano grabbed his arm. Don't answer that. Your Honor, Doc Rivera spoke up. We have surveillance footage, bank records, and witness testimony. Mr. Thompson bribed a social worker to file a false neglect report against Ms. Rodriguez. That report has since been withdrawn, and Ms. Patterson is under investigation. The courtroom exploded. People gasped. The bikers remained silent, but their presence felt heavier, vindicated. Order. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order in this court. When silence returned, she continued. Mr. Johnson, what else is in that folder? Tax fraud, Your Honor. Mr. Thompson has been hiding income in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands for at least 3 years. We have account numbers and transfer records. Hawk's voice remained calm, almost conversational. He's also made fraudulent charitable donations to reduce his tax burden while claiming those same amounts as business expenses, double dipping, I believe it's called. Castellano was on his feet. Your Honor, we have no way to verify. We have documentation from a whistleblower at Mr. Thompson's company. Doc interjected. Someone with direct knowledge of his financial arrangements. This person is willing to testify. Hawk continued. Additionally, Mr. Thompson owns a commercial property in Delaware that's been cited twice for safety violations. Workers have complained about unsafe conditions, but he's refused to make repairs to save money. 3 workers were injured last year. He pulled out more documents. We also have testimony from community leaders ready to speak about Ms. Rodriguez's character. Mrs. Brennan, a teacher with 23 years of experience. Father Miguel from St. Anthony's Church, where Maria volunteers. Carlos Martinez, a small business owner she helped when his sister was homeless. Judge Morrison flipped through page after page of documentation. Bank statements, tax forms, transfer records, official complaints, incident reports. Everything was organized, labeled, professional. Your Honor, Hawk said quietly, Mr. Thompson isn't fighting for his son. He's fighting to avoid child support payments. He abandoned Danny 5 years ago and only came back when Maria filed for support. This isn't about love. It's about money and ego. Castellano tried one more time. Your Honor, this is a coordinated attack by a motorcycle gang. Mr. Castellano, Judge Morrison's voice cut like ice. I've reviewed the documentation. These are public records, legal documents, and legitimate witness statements. Unless you're suggesting these tax records are fabricated. No, but then sit down. He's Saturday. The judge looked at Evan, and her expression was one of pure disgust. Mr. Thompson, I'm ordering a full financial disclosure. You will provide this court with complete tax returns, bank statements, and documentation of all assets within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in criminal contempt charges. Your Honor, Castellano tried weakly. We need time too. You've had plenty of time. And you've wasted it on lies, she turned to Hawk. Mr. Johnson, I want your witnesses. All of them. I want to hear what Maria Rodriguez did for you and for this community. Because right now, everything I'm seeing tells me she's the only parent in this room who actually deserves custody. Hawk nodded. Yes, Your Honor. They're ready. One by one, community members approached the stand. Mrs. Brennan testified about Danny's academic excellence and Maria's constant involvement. Father Miguel spoke about Maria's volunteer work and her unwavering integrity. Carlos told the story of how Maria had helped his family without expecting anything in return. Each testimony was brief but powerful. No theatrics, just truth. And with each witness, Evan seemed to shrink in his chair. The man who'd walked in with confidence and expensive lawyers now looked like what he truly was, a liar caught in his own web. After the community witnesses finished, Judge Morrison called a 10-minute recess. When they reconvened, her expression was stone cold. Mr. Chun, she said, do you have anything else to present? Tommy stood, and this time his nervousness was gone. He'd found his courage. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to formally enter into evidence the documents Mr. Johnson provided, along with additional financial records our office obtained through legal discovery. He approached the bench with a banker's box full of files. Castellano watched, his polished demeanor finally cracking. Your Honor, Tommy continued, these documents show a pattern of criminal activity spanning at least 3 years. Tax evasion through offshore accounts, fraudulent charity claims, bribery of a government official, and perhaps most troubling, he pulled out a specific folder, evidence that Mr. Thompson has been systematically underreporting his income to avoid child support payments. Maria's breath caught. That was why Evan wanted custody. Not love, just money. Your Honor, Castellano jumped up. These allegations are outrageous. My client is a respected businessman. Was, Judge Morrison corrected sharply. Mr. Thompson was a respected businessman. Now I'm not sure what he is. She looked directly at Evan. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to ask you some questions. You're under oath. Do you understand? Your Honor, I strongly advise my client not to answer questions without. Mr. Castellano, your client is in my courtroom fighting for custody of a child. If he's not willing to answer questions about his character and conduct, that tells me everything I need to know. She fixed Evan with a hard stare. Mr. Thompson, take the stand. Evan looked at his lawyer. Castellano shook his head slightly. Don't do it. But Evan was trapped. Refusing would look guilty. He stood on shaking legs and walked to the witness stand. Mr. Thompson, the judge began, why do you want custody of your son? Because I love him, Your Honor. He's my son. When did you last live with him? 5 years ago. And why did you leave? Evan shifted. I wasn't ready to be a father then. I made mistakes. But I've changed. Have you paid child support during those 5 years? There were some delays. Yes or no, Mr. Thompson? Not consistently, no. How much do you owe in back child support? Evan's jaw tightened. I'm not sure of the exact. $47,000. Tommy Chin called out, reading from a document. Plus interest. The courtroom murmured. That was almost enough for a down payment on a house. Money Maria desperately needed. Judge Morrison's eyes narrowed. Mr. Thompson, you claim to care about your son's well-being, yet you've failed to provide basic financial support for 5 years. Your Honor, my business had some difficulties. According to these tax documents, your business reported $600,000 in gross income last year alone. The judge held up the papers. So where's the child support? Those numbers are, after expenses. Mr. Thompson, did you or did you not transfer $200,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands in March of this year? Evan went pale. That was a business investment. A business investment? Judge Morrison's voice rose. You had money for offshore investments, but not for your son's food and shelter. Your Honor, you don't understand how business works. Don't patronize me, Mr. Thompson. I understand perfectly. You were hiding assets to avoid financial responsibility. She leaned forward. Now, let's talk about Linda Patterson. Did you meet with her on October 9th? Yes. Briefly. But it wasn't. Did you give her money? Evan looked at Castellano desperately. I gave her a donation. A donation? The judge's tone was incredulous. $5,000 in cash, handed over in a parking garage, 45 minutes before she filed a false neglect report against your son's mother? That's what you call a donation. She mentioned she was fundraising for. Mr. Thompson, I've seen the surveillance footage. I've reviewed Ms. Patterson's bank records. She deposited that exact amount the next morning. And the neglect report she filed was pre-written before she ever visited Ms. Rodriguez's apartment. Evan's face flushed red. Your Honor, You bribed a government official to file a false report. That's a felony, Mr. Thompson. No, I was trying to. He stopped, realizing every word was making it worse. What were you trying to do? Judge Morrison pressed. Evan's composure finally shattered. She doesn't deserve him. The words burst out, raw and angry. Maria barely has anything. I can give Danny everything. Private schools, vacations, a real future. Why should I pay her money when I can just raise him myself? The courtroom went silent. Even Castellano looked horrified. So this is about money, the judge said quietly. Not love. Money. Evan realized his mistake too late. I didn't mean. You just admitted, under oath, that you pursued custody to avoid child support payments. Judge Morrison's disgust was palpable. You bribed an official, hid assets, and attempted to weaponize the legal system against a woman whose only crime is being poor. Your Honor, please. I'm not finished. The judge's voice could have frozen fire. Let me ask you something, Mr. Thompson. In the 5 years since you left, how many times have you attended Danny's parent-teacher conferences? Evan hesitated. Work has been busy. How many, Mr. Thompson? None. How many birthday parties? None. How many school plays, soccer games, or doctor appointments? None, but when is Danny's birthday? Evan froze. His mouth opened. Closed. It's in spring? April? July? Maria whispered from her seat, tears streaming down her face. July 14th. You don't even know your own son's birthday, Judge Morrison said, her voice heavy with disgust. She looked at Maria, then back at Evan. But I'm sure Ms. Rodriguez knows. I'm sure she knows his favorite food, his fears, his dreams, his teacher's name, his best friend's name. Because that's what real parents do. Evan sat there, defeated, his lies stripped away like cheap wallpaper. The perfect image he'd maintained, the successful businessman, the reformed father, the stable provider, was gone. All that remained was a selfish man caught in his own trap. Mr. Castellano, the judge said, does your client have anything else to say? The lawyer stood slowly. No, Your Honor. Good. Because I've heard enough. She looked at the packed courtroom. The bikers sitting in dignified silence. The community members who'd stood for Maria. The reporters documenting every moment. We'll break for 30 minutes while I review all evidence. Then I'll deliver my ruling. The gavel fell. Evan stumbled from the witness stand, his expensive suit suddenly looking cheap. Castellano whispered urgently to him, but Evan wasn't listening. He looked like a man watching his world collapse in real time. Across the aisle, Maria sat frozen, Tommy's hand on her shoulder. She didn't dare hope. Not yet. But in the gallery, Hawk caught her eye and nodded once. They'd done it. They'd exposed the truth. Now they just had to wait. 30 minutes felt like 30 years. Maria sat on a bench in the hallway, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Tommy paced nearby, reviewing his notes one last time, even though there was nothing left to review. The case was in the judge's hands now. The community supporters filled the hallway, speaking in hushed voices. The Iron Hawks stood in a cluster near the windows, still in their suits, still maintaining their respectful silence. But even they looked tense. Hawk approached Maria and sat down beside her. How you holding up? I don't know if I can breathe, she whispered. What if she still rules against me? What if? She won't. Hawk's voice was certain. That judge saw the truth today. She saw who you are and who he is. But I'm still poor. I still live in that tiny apartment. Nothing's changed. Everything's changed, Hawk interrupted gently. You're not alone anymore. You never were, really. You just didn't know it. Maria looked at him. This man she'd helped 15 years ago without thinking twice. Why did you do all this? All of you. Because loyalty isn't just a word. It's action. He stood as the bailiff appeared in the doorway. Time to find out what justice looks like. They filed back into the courtroom. The energy was electric, suffocating. Every seat filled again, every eye focused forward. The reporters had their cameras ready. The community members held hands. The bikers sat with military precision. Evan looked gray, diminished. His expensive lawyers whispered to each other, their body language defeated. Even Castellano's perfect hair seemed less perfect somehow. Judge Morrison entered, and everyone stood. She carried a folder, and her expression revealed nothing. Please be seated, she said. The rustling of clothing, the scrape of chairs, then silence so complete you could hear hearts beating. Judge Morrison settled into her chair and looked out at the courtroom. In my 23 years on the bench, I have presided over hundreds of custody cases. Some are simple. Most are complicated. But I have never, she paused, never encountered a case quite like this one. Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. This case began with what appeared to be a straightforward custody dispute. A wealthy father seeking custody from a struggling single mother. On paper, it seemed simple. Mr. Thompson had resources. Ms. Rodriguez did not. The judge looked directly at Maria. But paper, as we've learned this week, can lie. She opened her folder. I've reviewed all evidence presented. The financial records, the testimony, the character witnesses, the surveillance footage. And I've had to ask myself a fundamental question. What does it mean to be a good parent? The judge removed her glasses, cleaning them slowly. Mr. Thompson would have this court believe that good parenting is measured in square footage and bank accounts. That love can be purchased with private schools and expensive vacations. She put her glasses back on. But that's not what the law says. And it's certainly not what common sense says. Evan shifted in his seat. The law is clear, Judge Morrison continued. Custody decisions must be based on the best interests of the child, not the best interests of the parent, not financial convenience. The child, she looked at her notes. Danny Rodriguez is 7 years old. For 5 of those years, he has been raised solely by his mother. During that time, Mr. Thompson has been absent. Not just physically, but financially and emotionally. Her voice grew harder. Mr. Thompson owes $47,000 in back child support. He has attended 0 parent-teacher conferences, 0 birthday parties. He doesn't know his own son's birthday. These are not the actions of a caring father. These are the actions of a man who abandoned his responsibility. Castellano started to rise, but Judge Morrison held up her hand. I'm not finished. The evidence presented by Ms. Rodriguez's counsel reveals a pattern of criminal behavior by Mr. Thompson. Tax evasion through offshore accounts, fraudulent charitable deductions, bribery of a government official, and witness intimidation through the filing of false reports. She leaned forward. Mr. Thompson didn't come to this court seeking his son. He came seeking to avoid financial obligation. Evan's face was crimson now, whether from shame or anger. Maria couldn't tell. In contrast, the judge's tone softened slightly. Maria Rodriguez has worked 60-hour weeks to provide for her son. She lives modestly, yes. But Danny is fed, clothed, loved, and thriving academically. His teacher describes him as well-adjusted and bright. His priest speaks of Ms. Rodriguez's integrity and dedication. Multiple community members testified to her character, not because they were paid, but because she had touched their lives through simple acts of kindness. Judge Morrison paused, letting her words settle. This court has also heard unprecedented testimony from 85 members of the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club. I'll admit, their initial appearance was startling. But after reviewing the evidence and hearing their testimony, I find no criminal activity, no intimidation, only loyalty to a woman who helped them when no one else would. She looked directly at Hawk. Mr. Johnson, your organization has shown this court what community really means. Thank you. Hawk nodded silently, but Maria saw the emotion in his eyes. "Now," Judge Morrison said, her voice taking on formal weight, "I'm prepared to issue my ruling." The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. "In the matter of custody for Daniel Rodriguez, minor child, I rule as follows." Maria gripped the edge of the table. "Full physical and legal custody is hereby granted to Maria Rodriguez, the mother." The courtroom exploded. Gasps, cheers, cries of joy. Maria's hands flew to her mouth as tears poured down her face. Tommy grabbed her shoulder, grinning. In the gallery, people hugged each other. The Iron Hawks didn't cheer, they simply stood as one, a silent gesture of respect and victory. "Order!" Judge Morrison banged her gavel, but there was a hint of a smile on her stern face. "Order in this court." When silence returned, she continued. "Mr. Thompson is granted supervised visitation rights, 1 weekend per month, pending completion of a parenting course. He is ordered to pay all back child support within 60 days, plus ongoing monthly support as determined by state guidelines." Evan slumped in his chair, looking 10 years older. "Furthermore," the judge's voice turned ice cold, "I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. The evidence of bribery, tax fraud, and filing false reports is substantial and demands prosecution." Castellano closed his eyes. His career would survive, but his client was finished. Finally, Judge Morrison said, looking at Maria with something almost like warmth, "Ms. Rodriguez, you have shown this court what real parenting looks like. Your son is lucky to have you. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise." Maria couldn't speak. She could only nod through her tears. "This court is adjourned." The gavel fell one final time. The sound echoed like a church bell ringing in victory. Maria stood on shaking legs as people rushed forward. Rosa from the diner hugged her, crying. Mrs. Brennan squeezed her hand. Father Miguel made the sign of the cross and smiled. Tommy Chin pumped his fist in the air like he'd just won the Super Bowl. And through the crowd, the Iron Hawks approached, 85 strong, respectful, triumphant. Hawk extended his hand. "You did it, Maria. We did it," she corrected, pulling him into a hug. "All of us." Across the aisle, Evan Thompson stood alone, his lawyers packing their briefcases, his perfect life in ruins. He'd come to court expecting an easy win. Instead, he'd lost everything: his son, his reputation, and soon his freedom. Justice, real justice, had prevailed. The sun was setting by the time Maria left the courthouse. She'd spent the last 2 hours signing papers, answering questions, and accepting hugs from strangers who'd become friends. Her face hurt from smiling through tears. Her heart felt too big for her chest. But there was one more thing she needed to do. She needed to get her son. Tommy walked her down the courthouse steps. The crowd had thinned but hadn't left. People were still celebrating, taking photos, sharing stories. News vans lined the street, reporters doing live broadcasts about the historic ruling. "Maria," a reporter called out, "how does it feel to win?" She paused, considering the question. How did it feel? Like breathing after being underwater. Like stepping into sunlight after years in shadow. Like finally being seen. "It feels like justice," she said simply. Mrs. Chin's apartment was only 10 minutes away. Maria had called her from the courthouse, her voice breaking as she delivered the news. Mrs. Chun had cried with her, then put Danny on the phone. "Mom." His small voice had melted her. "Are you coming home?" "Yeah, baby. I'm coming home. And I'm never leaving again." Now, as Maria reached the parking lot, she stopped. The Iron Hawks were there, all 85 of them, standing beside their motorcycles. They'd changed back into their leather vests, the Iron Hawk emblems gleaming in the fading light. Hawk stepped forward. "We'd like to escort you home, if that's all right." Maria looked at the rows of motorcycles, these massive machines that had terrified her just a week ago. Now they looked like guardians. Protectors. Family. "I'd be honored," she whispered. They rode to Mrs. Chin's apartment complex, the convoy moving through city streets like a river of chrome and leather. People stopped to watch, pulling out phones, waving. Some recognized Maria from the news and cheered. The sound of 85 engines rumbling through downtown was impossible to ignore. When they arrived, Danny was waiting on the front steps with Mrs. Chun. The moment he saw his mother, he ran. "Mom!" Maria dropped to her knees and caught him, holding him so tight she could feel his heartbeat against hers. "Hey, baby. I'm here. I'm here. Did we win?" "We won." She pulled back to look at his face. Her beautiful boy, safe, hers. "You're staying with me. Forever." Danny's eyes welled up. "I don't have to live with Dad. No. You get to stay home." He buried his face in her neck, and she felt his small body shake with relief. All the fear he'd been carrying, all the uncertainty, it poured out in that embrace. Mrs. Chun came down the steps, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "I knew you'd win. I told Danny all day, your mama's a fighter." "Not just me," Maria said, looking at the bikers who'd lined up along the street, engines still rumbling. "All of us." Hawk dismounted and approached. He knelt down to Danny's level. "Hey, kid, you've got one tough mom." Danny looked at him shyly. "Are you the bikers who helped her?" "We're the people your mom helped first," Hawk corrected. "She saved us. We just returned the favor." "Thank you," Danny said seriously. Then, surprising everyone, he hugged Hawk. The big man's eyes went glassy. He hugged the boy back gently. "You take care of your mom, okay? She's special." "I know," Danny said. Hawk stood and looked at Maria. "Ready to go home?" She nodded. What happened next, Maria would remember for the rest of her life. The Iron Hawks mounted their motorcycles. Hawk positioned himself at the front, then gestured for Maria and Danny to get into her old Honda Civic, the same car that barely ran, that she'd been terrified would break down during this whole ordeal. As she pulled out of the parking lot, the motorcycles fell into formation around her, not crowding her, not overwhelming her, just surrounding her, protecting her. They rode through the city as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The convoy stretched for blocks, 85 motorcycles escorting one battered Honda Civic like it was carrying royalty. And maybe, in a way, it was. People lined the streets, watching, filming, cheering. News helicopters circled overhead, capturing the moment. Social media exploded with videos and photos. But Maria barely noticed. She was focused on the road ahead and the little boy in her passenger seat. "Mom, this is so cool," Danny breathed, watching the bikers through the window. "Yeah," Maria agreed, tears streaming down her face. "It really is." They rode through her neighborhood, the one Evan's lawyers had called dangerous and unsuitable. Neighbors came out of their homes, waving and cheering. Kids pointed at the motorcycles in awe. Even the elderly man who ran the corner store stood in his doorway, clapping. When they reached her apartment building, the convoy circled the block once, a final, triumphant lap, and then, as one, 85 engines roared. The sound echoed off the buildings, a thunder of loyalty and victory. Then, one by one, the bikers raised their fists in salute before riding off into the night. Hawk was the last to leave. He pulled up beside Maria's car window and smiled. "You're home." "Thank you," she said, the words completely inadequate for what she felt. "For everything." "Thank you," he countered. "For showing us what kindness looks like. For giving us a reason to be better." He revved his engine once more and rode away, his taillight disappearing into the darkness. Maria and Danny climbed the stairs to their small apartment. The one-bedroom with second-hand furniture and peeling paint. The place that had been called inadequate by people who'd never lived in it, never filled it with love. Inside, Danny immediately ran to his couch bed, relieved to be home. Maria stood in the doorway, looking at her small life, her humble, beautiful, hard-won life. Once, she'd been nobody, a diner waitress working too many hours for too little pay, a woman who helped others without thinking about recognition or reward. Now, she was someone who'd beaten a system designed to favor the wealthy, someone who'd exposed corruption and proved that character mattered more than cash, someone who'd shown the world that loyalty, real loyalty, was the most powerful force on earth. And she had an army, 85 strong, scattered across the city, but always there when she needed them. Her phone buzzed. A text from Hawk. "Sleep well. You earned it." Maria smiled and typed back, "We all did." She tucked Danny into bed, kissing his forehead as he drifted off to sleep, safe and secure. Then Maria Rodriguez, the woman with 85 guardians, went to her own bed in her tiny apartment, and slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Her future, and her son's, was finally beautifully secured.